In 1861, our country began to have a conflict. It's called the Civil War. 1861. From 1861 to 1865, our nation fought itself. Now, I know right now we are at war, we're in conflict abroad, and we see on TV, CNN or Fox News, we'll see pictures from the war, but it's not really on our soil. But it's still painful. I mean, some of you know people who are in battle, and you're fearful for them. You pray for them all the time, and you're constantly kind of on edge, just really knowing that they're in the middle of that conflict. But could you imagine? Could you imagine what it would be like to be a part of a civil war? To literally look out the blinds of your front door and to see countrymen fighting each other in the street. That's what happened in Israel 2,500 years ago. And we're in the book of Nehemiah right now. Actually, it was 2,600 years ago that happened. That the nation fought and was divided into a northern and southern kingdom. And their civil war actually happened. They actually divided. And then, to double the pain, to make it even worse, outside nations came in and overtook both the northern and southern kingdom. And so here's Nehemiah 140 years later. Now think about this. In 1861 was when our Civil War started. And it's 150 or so years ago that it happened for us. For Nehemiah, it was 140 years. So roughly the same time period that passed from our Civil War to his Civil War. And that whole time, his nation was destroyed. And so Nehemiah, in the process of knowing this, he catches a new vision to rebuild the city, to rebuild the nation. And it was outside of his capability. It was outside of his training. But it was one of those things that he saw something that needed to be done, and he said, look, somebody has to do something about this. It might as well be me. I might as well be the one to step up and to do something about this. And so what happened, we see in verse 4 of chapter 1, Nehemiah mourned for his country. He fasted and he prayed. And after he gave his pain to God, he began to get a vision. So we talked about, look, God wants to give you a fresh vision. It's in the windshield. It's not in the rearview mirror. Don't stare in the rearview mirror. Look in the windshield. God has something in your future, a God-given vision. And we talked about what does it take to fulfill a vision? Two things, passion and a plan. You got to have passion, a God-given passion to be willing to stick it out in the tough times, to get up every morning, to continue to go for it, even when discouragement happens, even when tough times come. You keep pushing forward. It takes passion, but it also takes a plan. If you're full of passion, you got no plan, you're not going to get anywhere. You're just going to burn up. So last week, we actually showed pictures of the Hoover Dam and the steps that it takes to get you from where you are to where God wants you to be, and it's one step at a time. Don't get overwhelmed by the big project. Don't get overwhelmed by the big picture. Just take the step in front of you. Just take the step in front of you. So we talked about passion and plan. This week, we're going to talk about conflict. Because anytime you step out to do something for God, there will be conflict. A lot of times we find ourselves in conflict and we ask ourselves, what am I doing wrong? But sometimes conflict happens not because you're doing wrong, but because you're doing something right. When you do things right, sometimes things go wrong. It happens. So today we want to talk about how to deal with conflict. I heard a story one time about a ship that was out on the high seas. The captain's on deck, man up in the crow's nest. He's got his binoculars out. He's looking and he sees an enemy ship on the horizon. He yells down to the captain, "Captain, there's an enemy ship on the horizon." Immediately the captain begins to yell to everyone what to do. You get to the cannon, you do this, you do that. And he turns to his assistant, he says, "Bring me my red shirt." The guy's like, "What?" He's like, "Bring me my red shirt." So he goes and gets his red shirt, gives him the red shirt. The captain puts it on, and they fight this enemy. They fight him off, and they don't lose a single person. And his assistant was thinking, "Well, what is up with that red shirt? Is it a magic shirt or what's going on?" So he goes up to the captain afterwards. He says, "Why did you ask me to bring you your red shirt?" He said, "Well, because I knew as we went into this conflict, I may be struck in battle. I might get shot. I might begin to bleed, he said. And since I'm the leader, I want people to be encouraged. I don't want them to lose steam. And if they see me wounded, they might lose steam. So he said, I just wear my red shirt so that the blood would blend in with the shirt and we would be able to continue to fight ahead. It's like, man, that's cool. Well, the next day, man's up in the crow's nest, looks through his binoculars, sees 20 enemy ships on the horizon. He yells down to the captain, Captain, there are 20 enemy ships on the horizon. The captain turns to his assistant and says, bring me my brown pants. I heard that on the Blue Collar Comedy Tour, just to let you know I didn't make that up. Conflict happens. And when we find ourselves in a conflict, we have one of two instincts, fight or flight. Depending upon how you're made up, if you're a conflict person, if somebody attacks you or there's an enemy in front of you, some of you, your gut reaction, your instinct is to fight back, to attack back. And then others, non-confrontational, we like to have peace. You might be a people pleaser. Or a conflict just makes you uncomfortable. Oh, you don't like to be in conflict. You want to be everyone's best friend. You want everyone to like you. And so whenever there's conflict, you have a tendency to try to ignore it or pretend like it doesn't exist. Okay, so it's flight for you, fight or flight. And so, but we have to be real here, because when it comes to a vision that God's given you, there is going to be conflict. 100% chance. There will be conflict. Some of those conflicts will be external. We're going to talk about those today. Some of those will be internal, and Jonathan Palmer is actually going to talk about that next week. But I want to talk about conflict because the way we handle conflict is absolutely important and is critical for how we're able to fulfill the vision that God's given us, and for you to fulfill a vision God's given to you. Nehemiah was an absolute master at handling conflict. I don't know how he was trained for this. It might have just been intuitive, but we're going to see the way that Nehemiah handled conflict, and it's a textbook for handling conflict. How many of you have ever been through conflict? How many of you are going through conflict right now? How many of you know you're going to go through conflict in 2013? This is going to be a good one. I'm going to share with you one of the best chapters in the whole Bible. Every time I read this story, I laugh because it's just so good. All right, here we go. We're going to start out. Actually, before we get into Nehemiah, I do want to read this verse to you, because when you read it this way, it kind of comes alive in a different way. Matthew 5:44. This is Jesus talking, and he says this. He says, "But I say, love your enemies, pray for those who persecute you." Love your enemies, pray for those who persecute you. Notice the assumption here is that you will have enemies. Jesus doesn't say don't have enemies. He says love your enemies. He's assuming that you will have enemies. And for some of us, that just messes us up. If you're one of these people that needs everyone to like you, this is going to mess you up. Because you can't imagine why people would be mad at you. You always have to have everybody like you, and it's going to be constant turmoil because you will have enemies. But it's how you respond to those enemies, how you respond to that conflict that you have control of, but you don't have control. There are some people that will choose you as an enemy. Why? I don't know. Maybe they got picked last in kickball. Maybe they didn't get held enough as a kid. Maybe they got a burr in their saddle. I don't know what is causing them to do that. Some people, it doesn't make sense. We have no idea why, but you will have enemies. And Jesus said, love your enemies. He knew you were going to have enemies. He knew I was going to have enemies. So we have to love them and pray for those who persecute us. So we find ourselves conflict. Now think about this. Conflict, you learn this in literature class early on, junior high sometime. There's three kinds of conflicts: man versus man versus nature, man versus self. Man versus man versus nature, man versus self. Man versus man. Everyone one of those? Man versus man, woman versus woman, man versus woman, conflict. You've been one of those? Those are no fun. Sometimes they're conflicts. You have a verbal altercation. Most normal people don't like this. If you do like man versus man conflict, you're probably a jerk. Honestly, seriously, nobody likes man versus man conflict. Most of us, if you have a verbal altercation with somebody, it kind of shakes you up. for like the whole rest of the day or maybe even longer. It bothers you. And so we have some people we have these actual conflicts with. We have other people, some people you have conflict with and you've never even talked about it, right? Elephant in the room. You're in there with them, you can cut the tension with a knife. Have you ever been in a room with two people having a man versus man versus woman, woman versus woman conflict, and they're not saying anything, and is the most awkward room in the planet? You're sitting there like, okay, so how about those Ohio State Buckeyes, right? You just like change the subject. What can we do? It's like a million pounds sitting in the room. Have you ever been caught in the middle of a man versus man conflict? One person talks to you and they villainize the other person. Oh, so-and-so, man, they said this, they did this. And then you go and the other person pulls you over a little bit later. They pull you aside and they begin to share with you how bad the other person is. And you're like, I don't even know who's the villain here. And when I talk to him, he seems like the villain. When I talk to him, he seems like the villain. I don't even know. You're caught in the middle and you're like, look, I'm not a problem solver. I just want out of here. Right? Ever been in that situation? There's conflict. There's all kinds. There's people criticizing each other and personalities clashing and turf wars. You got people who are passive aggressive and people who are aggressive, and there's friction, bad blood. It's just no good. No good. Man versus man conflict. Then there's man versus nature. You set out the vision God's given you. You have passion. You have a plan. You start to move forward. You got this business idea, and you're going to change the world. You're going to eradicate the sex trade. You're going to give the whole world water and food. And you're going to make hunger history. You're going to do all that, and you're moving forward. And then the economy goes bad. What? Conflict. Man versus nature. There were some people a few months ago in New York City with great dreams and visions, and they're moving ahead, and they got a plan, they're going forward, and then a big storm comes through and messes up the city. There are all kinds of things. Nature, things outside your control happening all the time. Culture can be something that we're fighting, constantly fighting the culture of a community or of a city or a mindset, a way of thinking. And then there's man versus self. Man versus self. Some people are their own worst enemy. I've talked to people who were talented and gifted and called and had all kinds of, and I'm going, come on, you can do it. And it didn't matter how many times I said, you're great, you can do it, move ahead. They're like, I can't. Everyone in my family's a failure. I don't have the pedigree. I don't have the ability. They aren't self-confident for whatever reason. They're down on themselves. They're their own worst enemy. I'm like, oh, you can do it. I believe in them more than they believe in themselves. Doesn't matter how much I believe in them. If they can't believe in themselves and be willing to step out, it's man versus self. Some people lose man versus self on addictions and things that have kept them bound. And every time they take a couple steps forward, their mind gets messed up. There's a battle in their head. And so here we are. We're with Nehemiah, and we realize that Nehemiah found himself in a conflict, not because he was doing something wrong, because he was doing something right. Don't be surprised when God gives you a vision and you're full of passion and you have a plan, you got your sticky notes out, you're ready to take the world, by the tail, and you're going ahead. All of a sudden, man versus man starts happening. Somebody doesn't like it, and they start talking about you, mistreating you, or yourself. All of your insecurities begin to come to the surface. Things you've struggled with in the past, you thought you were past it, and all of a sudden, boom, it crops up again. Or some external thing in the environment begins to happen and change the whole thing and find you discouraged. And we're going to see, because Nehemiah handled conflict correctly, it actually catapulted him to greater determination. Isn't that cool? All right, here we go. We're going to see one of the times that this happens in Nehemiah 4, 7 through 9. There are these characters that were kind of Nehemiah's nemesis, okay? And it's a guy by the name of Sanballat and a guy by the name of Tobiah. Look at this. But when Sanballat and Tobiah and the Arabs, Ammonites, and Ashdodites heard that the work was going ahead and that the gaps in the wall of Jerusalem were being repaired, they were furious. What? Here's a guy functioning outside of his ability, going ahead, moving ahead, rebuilding a wall, and these guys are furious about it. Why? Listen, don't waste too much energy trying to figure out why haters hate. Don't do it. I've seen people cripple themselves lose all kinds of energy because they're trying to figure out why somebody's hating on them. We don't know why. It's not always logical. Hurt people hurt people. They may have hurt in their past and they're hurting you. Don't sit around and go, why me? Why are they picking on me? Why is my boss mad at me? I work hard. I come early. I stay late. I turn my projects in on time. How come they pick on me and not on him, not on her? Why is she his favorite? Why is he his favorite? Why do they do that? I'm just a good guy. I'm just a nice, hardworking, good old boy, good old girl from Columbus, Ohio, giving my best. How come I'm getting picked on? Why are they furious? Why are they mistreating me? Listen, don't waste your energy on that. Don't waste your energy on that. I had a football coach one time, for whatever reason, was picking on me all the time. Picking on me. It was like the harder I worked, the more he picked on me. The more I honored him and respected him, he picked on me. It was I couldn't do anything right. Whatever I did, he criticized, and it drove me crazy. Couldn't figure it out. I'm like, what's going on? Why would he do this? He was singling me out. I don't know. I couldn't figure it out at the time. Interesting thing, at the end of the season, it came out he had this bitter divorce. He divorced at the end of the season. Okay. Now, after that, it kind of made sense to me as I look back. I'm like, man, I bet you he was going through a terrible time. He'd go home and he was miserable, and he'd come to football practice and take it out on me. I don't know why he chose me, because he was taking it out on me more than other people. I don't know why. I still, to this day, don't know why he singled me out and treated me like that, but I don't need to figure it out. It's okay. I'm going to move past it. It's his issue, not mine. It only becomes my issue if I let it become my issue, okay? So here we go. These guys are furious for whatever reason. Verse 8, they all made plans to come and fight against Jerusalem and throw us into confusion, but we prayed to our God and guarded the city day and night to protect ourselves. Here's the conflict. These guys say, we're going to fight you and we're going to confuse you. Been there? I'm in a fight and I'm confused. I don't know what to do. I don't know whether to go left or right. I don't know whether to fight back or just defend myself. I don't know whether to be quiet or to speak up. Don't know if I should go to my boss. What should I do? What do I do? I'm in this conflict. I didn't choose it. I didn't go after them. They're just coming after me. They've got issues. So what do? Look what Nehemiah did. He prayed and he persevered. That's what you do. You pray and you persevere. In other words, he took it to God and then he went back to work. He took it to God and then he went back to work. Sometimes you just got to go back to work. Sometimes you just can't sit around and try to analyze it and try to figure it out. You just go pick your work back up and you go for it. Put your hand on the plow and go back. You pray about it. Now go back to work. Go back to work. He said, look, I'm going to take it to the Lord, and then I'm going to defend. We're going to guard our city. We're going to guard our work. I'm picturing Nehemiah with all these guys, and they're hearing, hey, man, these plans, these guys are coming. They're coming to take you out. He's like, all right, hey, you guys, come around here. Let's hold hands. We join hands. We're going to pray to God. Lord, help us. Help us, God. We believe you've called us here. We're building this city. Lord, this is bigger than walls. It's bigger than gates. Lord, this is your nation, your people, Lord. We know you are in this, so we ask you, Lord, to give us mercy, grace, and to protect us. Amen. All right, grab your weapons. We're going to defend this wall. Going back to work. Pray, persevere. Pray, persevere. Don't let a bully take the wind out of your sails. Don't let a bully get you to stop working. Don't let the bully win. The bully wins when he demotivates you or she demotivates you and causes you to quit. Don't quit. Don't quit. Notice this, Nehemiah didn't launch an offensive. He didn't go running off the wall, storming at him, you dirtbags, I'm going to get even with you. He didn't go back and start talking about them. He didn't, hey, what? They're going to come to our walls? You go back and tell them, I'm coming to their walls. I'm going to show up to their walls. He better be ready for me and all my boys. We're coming to his house. I'm coming back in. No, he didn't say that. I'm praying and persevering. I don't need to defend myself this guy. Now, check this out. It gets really good here, okay? Nehemiah 6. Look at this. Look at the way that Nehemiah handles this conflict. 6, starting in verse 1. Sanballat, Tobiah, and Geshem the Arab and the rest of our enemies found out that I had finished rebuilding the wall. So he prayed and he persevered. He kept moving forward. And these guys were relentless. They're like, we're going to keep coming at you. How many of you know you keep moving ahead, you ignore an enemy, and they just get more ticked? Right? They just get more mad. Sometimes they'll just ratchet up the intensity. And so he says, they found out we finished rebuilding walls and that no gaps remain, though we had not yet set up the doors in the gates. So Sanballat and Geshem sent a message asking me to meet them at one of the villages in the plain of Ono. It was a setup. Now, by the way, if somebody ever calls you and tries to get you to meet them at Ono, say, oh no. Not going to happen. He said, but I realized they were plotting to harm me. So I replied by sending this message to them. I am engaged in a great work, so I can't come. Why should I stop working to come and meet with you? That is awesome. What a great response. These guys are trying to bait him into a fight. They're saying, come on, come meet us down here. He said, I knew it. I realized they were plotting to harm me. These guys wanted to take me out. So he sent word back to them. I replied and said, I'm engaged in a great work. I can't come. Why should I stop working to come and meet with you? You're involved in a great work. If God's given you a vision, he's put something in the horizon, he's put something in the windshield, that's a great work. Don't ever let somebody pull you into conflict. Here's our attitude toward conflict. We push through conflict. We don't get pulled into it. We push through conflict. We don't get pulled into it. Nehemiah realized these guys were trying to bait him. They're trying to make him look bad. You ever have somebody just have it out for you? And what are they doing? They're trying to bait you so that you'll stoop down to their level and do what they're doing so that they can drag you into the mud. Get you as dirty as they are. Don't do it, man. Don't ever let somebody pull you into a conflict. You push through it. How did he push through it? Prayed and persevered. Prayed and persevered. Lord, help me. God, Lord, fight my battle. You're going to see, I'm going to read a couple verses in a minute of what his prayer was exactly. But his way of, he pushed through conflict. Look, there's some conflict you've got no control over. Someone's bringing a fight to you. They're bringing it to you. You can't stop it. You can't. They're not going to quit. They're going to be relentless because in some way, your vision is a threat to somebody. And so you persevere. You pray. You don't let somebody pull you into their mess. He said, man, I'm not coming off this wall. I'm involved in a great work. Why would I take time to come meet with you? Now look at this. Go back, verse before. The one we were just on. Go ahead, one more. It says this, 4 times they sent the same message, and each time I gave the same reply. Copy, paste. Copy, paste, right? Copy, paste. I'm not going to stop. I'm not coming off this wall. This is too important. Guys, God's given you a vision. If it's a God-given vision, don't waste your passion on haters. Don't waste your passion on pointless conflicts. Don't let somebody drag you into it. Here's the question you need to ask yourself when you're in a conflict. Is this conflict worth my passion? Is it worth it? Is this worth my passion? It might be. Maybe there's a conflict. You're like, if I don't deal with this, it's going to hurt the work. I have to deal with it. I have to deal with this conflict. I don't want to. My flesh doesn't want to. I don't like man versus nature, man versus self. I don't like any of this, but I got to deal with it. I have to, or it'll hurt the work. But what Nehemiah realized was that this one was going to be a distraction. So he said, I'm not going to do it. Now, look at this. We read on here. This is what happens in verse 5. It says, the 5th time, Sanballat's servant came with an open letter in his hand, and this is what it said. There's a rumor among the surrounding nations, and Geshem tells me that it's true, that you and the Jews are planning to rebel. That's why you're building the wall. According to his reports, your plan is to be their king. Go ahead and just stay at that other one for a second. So the guy's making up rumors. He can't bait him into a thing, so he tries to intimidate him and say, I'm gonna tell the teacher. I'm going to tell mom. I'm going to make everybody think you're bad. I'm going to all tell them that you're not noble. Now think about this. You're Nehemiah. You're a person. This ticks you off. Dude, I was in a palace, Sanballat, okay? I was in a palace sipping wine and getting paid well for it, okay? And I left my comforts to come sort out rubble and rebuild a city, okay? So back up off me, because I'm working hard here. I'm a good guy. And Sanballat's trying to say, oh no, you're tainted. You're just doing this to try to be the king. You're trying to overthrow. I know about that, and you better believe I'm going to tell the king about it. Baiting him. Nehemiah didn't go for it. He didn't go for it. Start all the rumors you want. Look, some of these rumors about you, don't give that junk the time of day. Don't give it the time of day. Who do you answer to? Who are you living for? Who do you really care about pleasing? There's a few people, and particularly God is the one you answer to, and he knows your heart. And there's a few people in your world that you may feel like, I got to make sure that they've got the story straight. I got to make sure they understand. But you don't have to win the court of public opinion. You don't have to do that. What do? You keep your eyes focused on the vision. What's the vision God's given you? You lock in on that. You stay focused. Focus on the vision. Focus on the vision. You're not going to pull me away. I'm at a great work. I'm not leaving this wall. This is really important. I'm not going to come meet with you. I don't have time for that. I'm moving straight ahead. I'm not going to get drug into something. I'm pushing through. I'm going straight ahead. So here we go. Fifth time he makes this stuff. He said, and this is Sanballat still talking. There's also reports that you've appointed prophets in Jerusalem to proclaim, look, there's the king of Judah. You can be very sure that this report will get back to the king. So I suggest that you come and talk it over with me. Trying to bait him. Look at this. Nehemiah, verse 8. I replied, there's no truth in any part of your story. You're making up the whole thing. Simple, dude, right to the point. You're full of it. I'm not coming. I'm not coming. Might as well back off. I'm focused. Would not let himself be pulled into something. Is somebody trying to pull you into something? Don't do it. Don't do it. I don't care what they said. I don't care who they said it to. Doesn't matter. Stay focused. Move ahead. Move forward. God's given you a passion. He's given you a plan. He's given you a vision. Stay focused. Don't let external conflicts distract you and get you to drive off course. You're driving, you're looking in the windshield, and somebody's over there going like this. Come over here, I want to have a fight. Nope, sorry. I'm going straight ahead. No, come over here. No. I'm looking straight ahead. I'm going to where I'm staying focused on the vision that God has. So look at this. He said, I replied, there's no truth. They made up the whole thing. He said they were just trying to intimidate us, imagining that they could discourage us and stop the work. And then this is beautiful right here. He says this, so I continued the work with even greater determination. Nehemiah refused to let conflict and rumors and all this garbage take the wind out of his sails. And so these guys who were, trying to wear him out, persistent, 5 times kept saying, come meet with us, tried to bait him, hit him below the belt, doing all kinds of just dirty stuff. He said, no, I'm not going to do it. Kept rejecting them. And the interesting thing is, because he prayed and persevered, these haters actually motivated him. He said, I continued work with even greater determination. If Sanballat and Tobiah are not in this story, he's still determined, but he's even more determined because of them. Don't let anybody get under your skin. Don't let anybody distract you. Don't let anybody cause you to be messed up. Don't let anybody take your focus away. They can try all they want. You stay locked in on the vision. What's the vision? Nehemiah was not qualified, but he was an incredible man because he stayed locked in, and he realized that the vision was bigger than all these other distractions. The vision was more important than the villain. The vision is more important than the villain. So he locked in on it and said, I don't care. I answer to God. I'm working with these people. I'm moving ahead. All right, so this is how the story ends. Nehemiah 6, or not the whole story, but this part of the story. Nehemiah 6, 13 through 15. It says, they were hoping to intimidate me and make me sin. Nobody can make you sin. You got to choose. Now, if you let somebody bait you and you sin, that's on you. You choose to react in the right way. So they were trying to make me sin. Then they would be able to accuse me and discredit me. Remember, oh my God, he's praying to God. Remember, oh my God, all the evil things that Tobiah and Sanballat have done. And remember that Nehemiah, or whatever this person's name is, the prophet. Listen, Sanballat and Tobiah were going around hiring people to try to slander him. They were paying people. Come on, dude. You're a loser if you're paying people to try to take somebody else down. Get a vision, right? If you're here and you're hating on somebody's vision, all right, I hope that you're not, I hope that's not the case. But if you are, seriously, go to God, get a vision and do something. Don't make your vision trying to tear somebody else down. Grow up. God's got a bigger purpose than you trying to derail somebody else. They're trying to hire people to take him down. And he says this, so on October 2nd, the wall was finished just 52 days after we had begun. Because he was willing to put his ego aside and say, look, these guys can say what they want about me. They can go to the king. They can start rumors, do whatever. I'm going to stay focused on the vision. His vision was more important than his comfort. His vision was more important than his reputation. I'm going to lock in on this. I'm going to do it. He refused to be distracted, refused to be taken to one side or the other. I know I'm talking to somebody today. I know I'm talking to somebody. You're in the middle of a conflict. And it's become absolutely consuming. Conflicts can become so consuming. All of your energy and focus, you have a hard time working. You have a hard time doing anything fun. It can rob you of your joy. And you're so caught up in that, the conflict has become your vision. That's a sad place to be. Don't let conflict become your vision. Don't let conflict become the thing that now everything you do, all your conversations, all your efforts is about winning that fight. No. It's bigger than that. God's called you to something greater. He's called you to build his church, to build the people, to reach out. He's put you in a place you have contacts and connections nobody else in this room has. You're special. God's created you fearfully and wonderfully. You're unique. He's called you to a big vision. Don't let yourself get bogged down with all the haters on the side and engaging in this thing and that thing. Look, you only have so many fights in you. I only have so many fights in me. I can't waste them on dumb stuff. You can't either. You only got so much time. Your time's going to be gone. You're going to die one day. You know that? Bad news. One day you will die. One day I will die. I'm going to run out of time. You're going to run out of time. One day I'll run out of energy. You'll run out of energy. And if my energy is in this bottle, I got to be real smart about where I pour it because I only have so much of it. I'm not going to waste it on dumb stuff. I'm going to do my very best to hear from God on what I need to be pouring my passion into. So ask yourself, is this conflict that I'm in right now, is it worth my passion? Is it worth my passion? And if it's not, doesn't matter what they do, you be the bigger person. And you move ahead. You can't control what they do. They may never ask you for forgiveness. They may keep lying about you. They may keep gossiping about you. So what? Move ahead. Walk ahead. If you're in a conflict right now and it is consuming you, walk away with this word. Don't get pulled into it. Push through it. Push ahead. Pray, persevere. Pray, persevere. Pray, persevere. Take the next step. Conflict comes. Somebody tries to pull you off the step. You're taking 10 steps up the steps toward Hoover. You're 10 steps up. Somebody tries to pull you down. Get off me. Pray, next step. Persevere. Keep going. Don't stop. Nobody's pulling you away. Nobody can grab you. Nobody can yank you off that step. You keep going ahead. Hey, there's no truth to what you're saying. I'm moving ahead. You answer to God. God's the one that gives the vision. God's the one that's trusted you with the vision. He's the one that's helped you develop the plan, and he's the one that ignited the passion inside you. Now it's your time to persevere.